Let's look at how to fit a Lockwood 001 deadlatch. These instructions can be used for a Lockwood deadlatch with a key on the inside and for the lever handle variant. First we will show how to fit the lock to a door, then we will show how to fit the wood frame strike, and finally the metal frame strike. I will stress from the start that the lock and the strike is to be fitted on the same surface plane. For a wooden frame door, this will usually mean the strike will be set into the frame to the depth of inside of the closed door. First decide the height on the door the lock is to be fitted. Measure back 60 millimeters from the edge of the door. This will be where we make the hole for the outside cylinder. Using a drill with a 32 millimeter hole saw, make the cylinder hole in the door. Make the hole saw cut from both sides of the door. If you drill from only one side, the wood on the door may split. Put the outside cylinder into the hole you just made. Put the backing plate of the lock on the door. Use the 2 cylinder screws to attach the lock cylinder to the backing plate. Use a screwdriver to do up the screws, making sure not to over tighten them. Put the key in the outside cylinder and turn it 180 degrees to the upside down position. Insert the large round cam into the backing plate, then turn the key back 180 degrees. The tailpiece of the outside cylinder will go through the cutout in the cam. Turn the key, making sure the key turns and does not bind. When the lock is fitted, it should be flush with the edge of the door. Ensure the backing plate is set back 3 millimeters. Use a square to ensure the backing plate is not on an angle. Make sure the lock is positioned correctly. You can tighten up the cylinder screws to hold the backing plate in position. This will allow you to install the lock and test its operation. Test that the lock is operating smoothly. Ensure it is square. Use a pencil to mark the fixing hole positions. Use the power drill with a small drill bit to drill pilot holes for the fixing screws. Install the backing plate with the 4 fixing screws. You can use a screwdriver or a power driver. These screws are countersunk and you need to make sure they are screwed in fully. Insert the round cam into the backing plate and rotate it 180 degrees. The outside cylinder is now installed into position. Use a scribe or marker pen to mark where the tailpiece of the lock cylinder comes through the cam. The tailpiece should sit flush with the outside of the cam. Remove the outside cylinder. Use a pair of pliers to cut the tailpiece to length. Put the outside cylinder back into the door. Use a screwdriver to tighten the outside cylinder screws. Turn the key 180 degrees, then insert the cam into the backing plate. Turn the key back so that you can remove the key. Test the operation to ensure there is no binding when the key is turned. Install the lock case over the backing plate. You may need to turn the knob or push the latch in to get the lock body to slip on. Use a screwdriver to install the 2 lock case screws. Now test the lock for proper operation. To fit the wooden frame strike, first we close the door. Then we use the strike to mark its position on the door frame. The strike must be centered with the lock. Open the door and use the strike to mark out its position on the edge of the door frame. Remember, the strike will be fitted level with the inside of the door, so make sure you mark the correct position. Trace around the edge of the strike to mark the cutout. And use a pencil to mark as close as possible to the strike plate. Use a hammer and chisel to make the cut for the strike. The strike should sit flush with the edge of the frame, and there should be no more than a 3 mm gap between the lock and the strike. Once the edge cut is made on the frame, slide the strike into the cutout. The strike may need to be set into the frame to make it level with the inside of the door. Use a pencil to trace around the top of the strike. Then trace as close as possible to the edge of the strike. Remove the strike and use a hammer and chisel to cut out the wood. Insert the strike into the cutout to make sure it is a good fit, then remove the strike from the door. The door frame strengthener is put into position on the side of the door. Center the door frame strengthener in the cutout. Mark the position for the screw holes with a pencil. Use a power drill to drill pilot holes for the long door frame strengthener screws. Ensure the pilot hole is not too small, as the long screws will be difficult to install. Put the door frame strengthener into position and use a power driver to install the long screws. The strike will slide into position over the door frame strengthener. Use a power drill with a small drill bit to drill the 3 pilot holes for the strike face. Once the pilot holes are made, use a power drill or a screwdriver to install the 3 wood screws that hold the strike in position. The lock and the wood frame strike are now installed. Don't forget to test the lock for proper operation. Now let's fit the metal frame strike. We cannot mortise in the strike on a metal frame door, so we have to make sure that when the door is closed, it is on the same level as the frame. To do this, we have to adjust the height of the lock to match the frame. A packer is used under the lock to adjust the height of the lock. Packers are commercially available, or it is possible to make your own. The packer is put in place when the lock is being fitted. The tailpiece of the outside cylinder will be cut longer when using a packer. With the door closed, put the metal frame strike mounting plate centered in position on the frame. Ensure the mounting plate is set back from the frame's edge. Account for the thickness of the strike and ensure there is no more than a 3 mm gap between the frame strike and the lock. Mark the screw positions with a pencil. Drill pilot holes for the strike screws. These holes will go through the metal frame. There may be concrete behind the frame. You will have to drill into the concrete. Ensure you drill deep enough for the mounting screws. Use a power driver to install the 3 metal frame strike mounting screws. The strike fits over the mounting plate. Use a screwdriver to fit the 2 screws that hold the strike to the mounting plate. The metal frame strike is now installed. If you require any help fitting a Lockwood 001 deadlatch and you are in Brisbane, you can contact the Lock Mob anytime.